Rebuilding a Rustproof Landrover. This is Vacuum Pumping, part 22. The new vacuum pump looks very similar to the old one, but it's not the same. The original pulley does not fit and the bolt hole spacings for it are wrong. By making a spacer ring to centralise the pulley and elongating the hole slightly, I made it fit and all is well. Although when I fitted this vacuum pump in the same position as the other one, the pulley on the pump and the main drive pulley didn't line up. I had to reverse the position of the one on the pump. By that I mean I had to turn it around the other way. And now everything lines up perfectly. Here's a comparison between the new pump and the old one. You can see they are similar in size but very different. I've just put the details on screen about where these pumps are made. The company is of German origin, so they should be okay. They're basically very simple devices when they're working okay. And the other one, which had been on the Landrover since 1999 or thereabouts, worked very well for all of that time. As I mentioned in the last episode, my friend Ken, to whom I sold the Landrover, changed the diaphragm. Time to get down to business. It's not going to do anything for the Landrover sat on the bench. Here I'm checking the suction on the pipes and it is considerable. That is not me making the funny noise, that is the pump. It's looking good. I turned around the top cover and at this stage I didn't realise that I was going to have to turn it a second time so the pipes fitted without fouling anything. I was a bit puzzled by this. When I checked the measurements, the holes are a different spacing on the new pump to the old one. Not by very much, though I should be able to elongate the holes in the pulley to make it fit. Also, the central alignment bosses are a different diameter. That's not a big problem. I can make an adapter very easily. These are metric bolts, which is a good thing because I already have some. Although I'm not going to use them, I'm going to use M6 Allen caphead bolts like these. I'm glad that I did because at this stage I didn't realise I was going to have to reverse the pulley on the new pump because it didn't line up with the main drive pulley on the engine. And these Allen caphead bolts were much easier to handle than the hexagon bolts. My friend Andrew gave me a piece of aluminium because he works with aluminium quite frequently, and I was going to make another pulley, but then I thought to myself, but then it won't be original, and okay, the pump's not original. But time is something I'm fast running out of, so I'm not going to mess about. I'm just going to make an adapter collar. I put a small piece of aluminium in the chuck, and here I'm turning the outer diameter to fit into the pulley. I'd like to mention to anyone who's noticing a marked lack of any measuring equipment, I didn't use any. I used my eye and then used the components to verify they were the right size. Here the pulley fits on perfectly, but it's a bit tight, and as this pump gets very hot when it's been used, I thought I would machine a tiny bit more metal just to give it a bit of tolerance, because the aluminium will expand considerably when it gets hot, and I don't want it to crack the pulley. Basically, I'm referencing the original pump because the guide on that wasn't a tight fit in the pulley's centre. I can't understand why I'm getting such a good finish with this tool because it really does need the tip changing, but anyway, it's near enough for jazz. When I push this pulley onto the piece of aluminium and spin it in the lathe, the pulley doesn't fall off, so it should be okay. To continue with the job, I use a centre drill to make a deep centre hole in the middle of the piece of aluminium. Now I need to drill a hole in the middle large enough to allow my boring tool to fit in it. I do this in stages, starting off with a 1/4 inch drill bit. Then I went to 5/16 of an inch and then 3/8, which was big enough to allow the boring tool to go in there to enlarge the hole to the size I wanted it. This is a very simple plain turning job. The thing is though, the end product has to be very accurate. If it's a rattle fit, it's not going to be successful. I used the boring tool to increase the diameter of the hole, and then I tested it against the part that's going to fit in there, which was the guide on the new pump, and I'm pleased to say that after a couple of attempts I got a near perfect fit. It's not an interference fit, it's a piston fit. I need to allow for expansion. I removed the sharp edges from both sides using a file, and to the viewer who wrote in to tell me that I needed to make sure there was a handle on the file, As I've shown in many of my videos, I am aware of this. The part is a very good fit on the boss on the new pump, but I did have to tap it into position very gently using a soft hammer. Pretty much like you see here, very gently. This adapter that I've made matches the thickness of the pulley, so it's a bit deeper than the one that's on the shaft. The pulley is a perfect fit. It's not tight and it's not slack. Please feel free to insert your own girlfriend joke in this bit. The next job was to elongate the slots in the plastic pulley, and this was a very simple job. I just used the edge of a sharp 6mm drill in the drilling machine and held the pulley against the side of this. I've paused the video to show you something. If you look at this image, you will see that the washers are just big enough to hold the boss permanently in place. This was intentional. I used stainless steel washers to prevent rust. Here's the finished job. At this stage I didn't realise I was going to have to turn the pulley around to make it align with the main drive pulley, which I mentioned previously. But that was a very simple job. You'll be able to clearly see the pulley alignment at the end of the video because there's one clip that I took of the engine running. And now for the mounting. This is how I mounted the original pump, with a 3/8 of an inch diameter bolt, with a load of washers to act as a spacer between the flat metal plate that bolts to the front of the engine that holds the pump. But I didn't want to reuse that method. I thought I would make a spacer, and I selected a piece of stainless steel, which turned out to be a bit of a mistake. Please keep watching. All I had to do really was part it off and then clean up the end. Watch what happened. What puzzles me is I'm using lubrication, and look how the swarf's coming off. It's winding into little rings. I kept the area lubricated all the time, and then suddenly, without warning, this happened. The parting tool holder broke, and I really don't think this was the main culprit. I think it must have been cracked from previous jobs. I've had it a long time. And what didn't help was the fact that the parting tool itself was a bit on the short side, and it wasn't held by all the clamp bolts. Never mind, you do learn by your mistakes, and I will buy a new holder as well as a new parting tool. By the way, it wasn't the adjustable tool post holder that broke. It was a separate parting tool holder that was clamped in position into the main tool holder. So as a punishment, I had to cut the rest of the way through using a hacksaw. That is the video editor, not me. I have to take it easy these days because I have a problem where if I put too much pressure on my system, it goes wrong. Once again, I'm having to go to the hospital for further tests. Anyway, such is life. Once I started to machine this piece of stainless steel, I realised how hard it was. It's even been quite difficult with this big carbide tip tool. I thought it would be a good idea to drill the hole in the centre first to remove some metal. I started this off with a centre drill, then I went through with a 1/4 of an inch drill, and finally I went through with a 3/8 of an inch drill bit. I very carefully enlarged the holes in the pump body from 8mm to 3/8 of an inch, because I need the mounting to be as strong as possible. And here is the pump ready to fit to the Landrover. You can see the principle here. Although I didn't get the spacer right, and when I was fitting it to the Landrover, I had to insert another washer to extend the spacer. Here's the before shot with the old pump, and here's the new pump fitted in position. And as you can clearly see, to make all the piping fit, I had to rotate the top cap one more bolt hole to the right. I think it's time to start the engine and give it a test. The vacuum is showing 25 inches of mercury, which is what it did with the old one, before it stopped working. When I switched off the engine, or should I say when I pulled the decompressor lever, the vacuum gauge was still reading 25 inches of mercury, which is very good, no leaks at all. It was a bad day for the parting tool, but once again, at least my Landrover stops remarkably quickly. And that is it for this episode. Stay safe, stay healthy. Thanks for watching, and I hope you found it useful. Please take the time to visit my Mainsteam Models website. and click on the section of the website that says Video Playlists. And by doing that, you can find other videos that you may like to watch. And by using the playlists, you can actually watch the videos back to back.